All right, we're going to talk about industrialization again today. We kind of went with architecture the last class meeting. We're going to look at what we call the market revolution now. This is when we changed from a farming system to a factory system, okay? And again, we're going to back up a little bit. We're going to do a lot of stuff that's really outside of this time period. But if you don't understand this, you're going to have real difficulty later on understanding much of anything. All right, so the transportation revolution. Big changes in transportation at this time period. We built the first national roads. Write this down. First turnpike was built in Lancaster, Pennsylvania in 1790. Turnpike is an old name for a highway, okay? They still use them up north. They're usually toll roads up north. But a turnpike is just a major highway that connects major cities. By 1832, there's nearly 2,400 miles of road that's connecting our cities. Now, we had all these roads and we didn't have cars. But they're still going to help with wagons, horse-drawn carriages, stuff like that. That's going to be a big change. A big change.
Because now they know how to go somewhere.
They know how to go somewhere, and plus you can travel during all weather if you've got a road. Now these roads they're brick roads for the most part. But
It's actually more durable than our roads now.
in a lot of ways they are. But you can see it still stands. It was built in 1790 and people still use it. I was in Italy in the early 90s, in the Roman ruins, and we were driving on roads that were built by the ancient Romans. They were that effective.
Yet the roads out.
Yet the road in front of my house, they repaved 2 years ago, and it's got potholes in it. This was the very first interstate. They didn't call it that. They called it the National Road back in 1811. And it goes from Maryland all the way out there to St. Louis, Missouri. Pretty impressive if you look at it. By the way, that's basically from Washington, D.C. out to as far west as we were in 1811. Okay?
How long did it take them to build it?
That one took about a year to build. But it was a massive complex. It wasn't like we're going to start in one place and build all the way. People in all these states started building roads and they just connected them and they met each other. Oh. Write this down. The big change is when the Germans show up, and the Germans brought Conestoga wagon. This is what I think of when I think of the West. You think of the Old West, if you're like me, you think of John Wayne gathering a posse together and riding around in Conestoga wagons. What's the advantage of this?
Well, they carry a lot.
You can carry a lot, and it's lightweight, you can go quickly.
Also covered.
They are covered. Some of them were actually built in such a way they were watertight. The way that they were done, that would allow you, when you got to a river crossing, to enter the water and just kind of float across the river.
Oh, okay, so it's like a boat.
It's kind of like a boat, yeah. That was pretty rare, but there were some that were built that way. The greatest accomplishment of the 1820s, though, has to be the Erie Canal system. The Erie Canal is a system of man-made canals that were dug that linked the St. Lawrence River and the Great Lakes. They literally got out there with dynamite and mules and shovels and dug a river connecting these that boats could go through.
Yeah.
That's impressive if you think about it.
Get 1,000 people today with power tools and all that take us about 4 years,
Yeah, we can't do it.
and it would look terrible.
But they did this, and it still runs. This system is still there. In '93, I was on a ship, a Marine, we went to the Great Lakes tour, and worked the lock systems in there. So U.S. Navy ships go through this stuff.
U.S. Navy ships can fit through them.
Well, they're pretty big. Here's a picture. Excuse me. This was begun in 1817, completed in 1825, the Erie Canal.
Can we write that down?
You don't have to write this one down. But that's pretty impressive if you think about it, carrying these barges through that. Any of you want to do that work? I certainly don't. Yeah. Big change. Robert Fulton came up with the steamboat. They called it Fulton's Folly, and they laughed at him when he came up with the steamboat. In 1807, the very first one was the Claremont.
Did he build it in America? Wait, the steamboat was invented in America?
Yeah. But it was pretty effective. Replaces the paddle boat.
But they laughed at it.
What's the advantage of a steamboat? It's not faster,
No, but it's.
but
You carry more people.
you can sail both ways on the river. You're not dependent on the tide. You're not depending on going the direction the river flows. It's got enough power that you can sail upriver. That's pretty impressive.
When did he invent it?
The steamboat,
When?
1807.
Just making sure that's the
Yeah.
correct date.
Yeah. And it changed everything. We still use steamboats today on major river systems. In fact, I'm trying to talk my wife into taking a trip. There's something called the Delta Star. It's a steamboat, but it's also a paddle boat. It's got both. And it rides on the intercoastal waterways from Houston all the way to Florida, riding inside the water system. I'd love to do it. My idea of a cruise. I don't have to get out in the high seas where I get seasick.
How long did the trip take?
I think that one is 10 days.
Ain't that bad.
I enjoy my cruises, but pretty cool. All the advantage of the cruise and not anything else. So you see, we had lots and lots of canals that were dug. It wasn't just the Erie Canal, the Delaware Canal, the Pennsylvania Canal. All of these were happening that were linking all these major cities together. Because of this, freight costs are dropping dramatically. Why is that important? Freight costs dropping.
More freights.
Means that we can sell more goods. The other thing that we developed at this time is the clipper ship. A clipper ship is a fast-moving ship. They tend to skirt along the coast. They don't go real far out. But these would sail around South America. So you get on it on the East Coast, sail all the way around South America,
Go to Japan,
and
too.
go up to the West Coast of the United States. And
Oh,
you
what
could
we
do
said?
that. You could do that faster than you could get in a Conestoga wagon across the country. Okay?
Wait, so we were already settling in like California and.
We were moving that way, yes.
Okay.
By
Do
this
we own-
point, we're there.
Do we own it?
We got it in the 1830s, so yeah, right about this time. (1830), the first big test of railroads developed. Now, we didn't invent railroads in this country, but we invented a system that really worked. We had the first great railroad system. When we put this battle here, the Iron Horse, they called it. The Iron Horse was a steam locomotive that chased or raced down a horse-drawn carriage, and it defeated a horse-drawn trolley system. First time it's ever happened, and proved that you can, this is a workable system.
Everybody's like, dang that Iron Horse.
People were shocked that they were able to beat a horse.
I can hear
And
that.
that's kind of a misleading picture, because you see it's one horse. It was a team of horses that would pull these. But still, That's impressive.
Someone built that.
Somebody built that.
How bad it beat the horses right there.
I think it was close. I don't remember exactly. The 1850s, write this one down. In the 1850s, we had our first railroad revolution. We had immigrant labor that was building most of the railroads in the north. But in the south, it's slave labor that's building the railroads. Where are most of the railroads? You got a map there?
East Coast.
And particularly northeast, right? Why?
That's where most of the businesses are.
That's where the cities are, right? There's not really as much need for it. The railroads in the south went from a couple of major cities to carry cotton, and they carried it up to Chicago, and that was about it. Let's talk about some of the new inventions that we had.
Americans are really trying anything.
We were not originally very creative. What Americans were good at was taking other people's ideas, stealing them, and getting rich off them. Okay? We're willing to try absolutely anything. Look at these numbers. In 1800, there were 41 patents approved. By 1860, 4,357 patents. What's a patent?
Like a plan.
Okay? It's the right to make something. If you invent something, you patent it, and nobody else can make it without paying you. Okay? It's the same thing as a copyright is to a song. It's just the right to own an idea. And the fact that we had a patent system is part of what made America so successful, because there was money in just inventing stuff. Still is today. Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin way back in 1791. Now, he was not the first person to do it. I mentioned here that we were not innovators. We were great at stealing ideas. The cotton gin was actually invented by a slave in Bermuda, but it didn't work on the cotton we had in America, because our cotton had a very slick seed. Eli Whitney invented the type of cotton gin that works on our cotton. And this is a super important invention, because slavery was actually dying out in this country. Slavery was not profitable. It cost more to buy a slave and take care of it than they could produce in cotton, until that was invented. And all of a sudden, slavery became profitable again. So it looked like, before 1790, it looked like slavery just would have died and we would have stopped having slaves. It didn't make any money. But instead, we had to fight a civil war in 1861.
Because of him.
Because of this invention. Yeah.
Man, started all the wars with one machine.
He also, the thing that's more important about him that we'll never talk about is that he also invented interchangeable parts. He's the guy that came up with the idea that we could mass produce something and the parts would be interchangeable from one to the other.
So he did invent something.
He did. This particular cotton gin, if something broke on it, you could call the factory and they send you another piece and it would fit. That never happened before. He came up with that. And he didn't actually come up with it for this. He came up with it because he made guns for the U.S. Army in the War of 1812. And he used interchangeable parts on those muskets. But kind of a cool idea. This was Eli Whitney's gun factory right here. That's a big change, interchangeable parts. This guy, Oliver Evans, came up with the prototype for the locomotive and the first flour mill that was automated, something that's kind of cool. Look at that primitive locomotive there. Anybody want to go down the road on that thing?
Heck yeah. New and clean.
John Deere. John Deere invented the steel plow. And today we name a tractor company after it. But he actually invented a plow that was pulled behind horses back in 1837. Super, super important. Samuel Morse, write this one down, it's important. Write it down. Samuel Morse invented the telegraph in 1840. What's a telegraph?
So it's like a telephone, except it writes down what you say.
No, it does send messages, but it sends messages as a series of dots and dashes.
Morse code.
Yeah, Morse code, Samuel Morse, who's named after. So they would connect and disconnect this electric signal that if you left it connected for a long time, it was a dash. If it was quick, it was a dot. So it was a dot, dot, dash, dot, dot, dash. And you'd hear this, and that code could be broken down into words. We still use Morse code today in the military, so it's very effective, very efficient. It's a good way to send messages. Most people can't break it, although it's all very, very available now. I'm going to skip Cyrus Field. These two guys, Elias Howe and Isaac Singer, are co-credited with inventing the sewing machine because these guys patented at the same time a very similar invention. Okay, why is that going to be an important invention?
Now we can make clothes quickly.
Suddenly we have jobs for lots of people that we didn't have before. We can mass produce clothes. Before this, clothes were made what we call the cottage system. It meant your mama sat down with needle and thread and hand sewed them. This is a vast improvement. This guy Samuel Slater is a genius. I want you to write him down. We call him the father of the factory system. Samuel Slater was also one of the greatest thieves in all of history. The British had invented a system for making a loom to make fabric. A guy named Richard Arkwright had invented it. He called it the spinning jenny. And it gave England complete control of the textile industry. Write it down, Hopper. Complete control of the textile industry because it was water powered. And you could make fabric very, very quickly, much quicker than anybody else in the world could. England was getting so rich off it that they made it a crime for anybody to leave the country that knew how to build one of these. It was a national secret. Well, Samuel Slater went to England. He went to work for Richard Arkwright. And he would go in there while he was working and memorize the parts of the machine. And he'd go home at night and draw that part of the plan out. And the next day, you go look at another one and memorize it and go home and draw that part of the plan out. And after he learned to do this, he snuck the plans out of the country, came to America, and built his own water wheel. Entirely illegally. Builds it in Rhode Island and ends up building one that works better than Arkwright's. Samuel Slater invents a textile industry in America that's more efficient than the British system. And we pretty much shut down the British system with stolen technology.
And they got pissed.
They were pissed. But, whatever, we win. That's all that matters to me. Y'all got this? This is the first dual-purpose textile plant. The problem is, you've got to have people work these plants. So they came with what they call the Lau system or the Waltham system. They built a town, and they would invite these young, unwed women to come live in the town. And they would provide safety for them, church meetings, whatever they needed to do, and watch out for these women. In exchange, they would work almost as slave labor. They would get very little wages. But they didn't have, they were given a place to live, they were given their food. A lot of times fathers would send their daughters there because it was cheaper to feed. And it was a way for unwed mothers to work. The Lau system worked well. In fact, the buildings are still around today. This is what a textile loom looked like at that time period. And they were everywhere. Samuel Slater's system went to all these places where you see purple or where Slater's looms were. All that from stolen technology.
We're very good at taking things.
We were very good at it. How did we dominate textiles? Okay, well, here's your example. All those places that are docks are places where we have spindles in operation. Impressive. Here's a picture of a young lady going to work for Lau. This is what life was like for a Lau girl. By the way, you ever notice these old pictures? Everybody looks old. These were probably teenage girls. Okay?
Those
But-
are 30.
Life was a lot different. Okay? Life expectancy was shorter. You looked older.
When you're
and
like
younger.
16, you're basically an adult.
Pretty much so. There's the boarding houses they lived in. Kind of looks like a college.
Did they get any education?
They got a little bit, not very much.